We are deeply privileged today to have with us three amazing, eclectic mix of guests. The first is Professor Eric Kaufman, who's come in from all the way from the US, and he is on a tour in this region talking about everything disruptive, digital disruption, talking about young people and how they have shaped the world and the way forward when it comes to technology and marketing. Professor, he just spoke about entrepreneurship. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think there are three really important factors which I've learned in my work with young people throughout the world. The first is really to define their purpose. What is the purpose of their entrepreneurial venture? Is it to make money? Is it to change the world? Is it to launch a new technology? Is it to develop their ego? What is it about? When they come to really understand the why, that's going to be very important, because that has to empower the entire organization, and that has to be the passion or the currency with which the organization runs on. So that's the first thing. The second thing is really, really critical. It's about an obsession with people. The people are the customers, and we call that in this new world customer experience. They have to be obsessed with how you satisfy the customer, how you understand the customer, how you listen to the customer, how you communicate and interact with them, how you honor them, how you delight them. That's very, very critical. But also, when you do all those things, what do you develop? The most important word which is missing in our business environment: trust. We don't trust each other. Millennials do not trust, 70, 80% of millennials do not trust advertising. They will invest in more social responsible goods. They will pay 70, 80% of them will pay more money for more social responsible goods. So you have to trust people, you have to trust your consumer, and you have to trust your staff. You have to listen to your staff. You have to want the staff to be part of the process and not have them outside the process. And that's going to create the third thing, which to me is critical. It's synergy and collaboration. You have to break down the old traditional ways of doing business in silos. There's HR, there's finance, there's marketing, there's management. That's all old. This all has to be integrated into one synergistic way where 1 + 1 = 3 and exponential opportunities transpire. So those are the three elements which I think are really, really critical.
Can we demystify all of this, Professor, and basically say that, this is all fine. We look at these amazing, great stories coming out of US and China and various other places. But what about the day-to-day guy, the guy who has to open his little bakery and do normal things in the village, and because this still represents 85% of our lives? What are they going to be doing as we go forward? How can they bring in the benefits of digitization and the benefits of information into their lives to fundamentally change their lives? Because bakers and farmers and stuff, they will be there.
Well,
philosophical questions.
Well, it's not. It's both philosophical and real. And I'll go back. One of the things is that in the Industrial Revolution, we've been focused on products and services. On the Information Revolution, we're going to be focused on networks. And how does somebody who's a baker or a nonprofit or any business, instead of looking at marketing a product or a service, they have to see how they can use the connectivity of the people that they know to be able to utilize these things over here, which are computers and master connectors. And if you cannot use that in a way which can foster your business, you're going to become an anachronism in the business world. So, for example, how could a baker who has, 100 or 1,000 customers, how can he utilize those customers in a way which he can communicate with them, and they can use this modality to share it with other people to draw other customers in, so then he becomes using the network in a way to solve his questions. And I think we have to start rethinking the model of the world right now. And the model of the world right now is about connectivity, and we have to really begin to understand how we can connect people. Look at what is the most successful terrorist organization in the world? ISIS. What do they use? They have 100,000 people connecting on a daily basis and promoting propaganda. You might not like the propaganda, but they're using the network. I'm American, how did Mr. Trump, who had a quarter of the money that Jeb Bush had, how did he beat all these traditional guys? He had 30 million Twitter followers. So he used the network and the force of his passion about what his political venue was to talk to a base of people. It sounds like bigger things, but it's conceptual. They have to really rethink the way business is being done. Business is being done through connectivity. It's not being done on a one-to-one basis.
So that's a great answer in terms of where I'm coming down to Bait, for example. They have 25, 27 million people that they are connected to, and 7 million unique visitors to their website. Now, all of these people are coming to get a job or to learn or to develop. From your perspective, and now that you're getting into fintech, are these the kind of networks can be used in 6, 7, 8 different kinds of ways? Absolutely. Rather than only one direction?
He has access to the thinkers and the people of the world which want new knowledge, and it's an exceptional way to communicate and to offer trainings and opportunities to really rethink the world and recalibrate the world, because these are the people yearning for it. They're yearning for opportunity. Well, you have access to them. Access is the most important thing, and a network to them. And what is the delta about putting one other thing on it? It costs nothing. It's like Airbnb, putting one more hotel or 2 more hotels on. How much does it cost them? Nothing. How much does it cost Marriott to put another hotel on? Okay? So what else can you do in accessing that network to leverage those people and give them more skills and more opportunity to be prepared? I think it's a phenomenal idea. Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Professor, one of the ideas we've developed over the last 18 months, it's sort of been there, but I've evolved it into a very formal framework on reverse mentoring. And what we're trying to do is to I have something called the 60-40-20 rule. Is the 60-year-old are making strategic decisions for the 40-year-olds to execute and for the 20-year-olds to consume. So you have the 63-year-old chairman of a private equity firm deciding for the 19-year-old person, and there's just too much disconnect. So what we're trying to do is to reverse this completely, and sort of say, okay, why don't we get the 19-year-old, the 23-year-old actually sitting with business leaders and business heads and mentoring them, so they become the mentees as opposed to the mentors. Mentoring them on the basis of what their view of the world is, while the mentees, the older person here, will talk about wisdom and experience and all of those things. Would you like to have a young mentee, a 19-year-old coming to you and sort of saying, this is how I see the world? Is that something you would enjoy, appreciate, or find offensive?
Well, I initiate that. We're in my book on digital marketing, which is being in its 2nd edition right now, we have engaged a young 22-year-old to be a partner in writing the book. And we want her perspective, and it's a her perspective, on what it means to be a millennial in the digital world. And she has a speak out section for every chapter. And so she's going to be speaking to the students from her perspective and changing the whole thing. In addition to speaking to me, because my whole thing is she's going to re-edit every chapter and give a whole different perspective and to take from somebody who's a baby boomer and somebody who's an X generation. So I don't think it's a question. I think it's essential, because I think it creates what's called creative tension. The creative tension is when you don't agree with everybody, but you're challenged to create divergent thinking. That to me is essential.
One of the things with my reverse mentor last year, Bill Feng, when he was down from the US, I used to take him to meetings, and I used to come out of the meeting thinking, oh, I think I really did well in this meeting. He used to sit around and say, that was crap. What the hell? You didn't ask this, you didn't do this, you didn't do that, and we're going to be the leaders of the future, and you completely missed it. I said, oh my God, he's right. Because I was focused on LinkedIn and Facebook, and he said, we would never go there. What are you talking about? You're building your entire strategy on something which we would never go to.
Because they asked a millennial, and since I have a 13-year-old, 15-year-old, The Z generation asks a whole different set of questions because they have a different lens that they look through.
That's right. Yeah.
You know, I keep on saying we look through a hierarchical product lens, and they look through a network, flexible, open lens.
Yeah.
And that's very different.
One of the other things that I've discovered, and perhaps you can give us your insight on that, is that now the 10-year-old, the 12-year-old, the 14-year-old, with all of the facilities of a computer in their back pocket, of the cloud, and a lot of the learning, our new inventors are going to be 15 years old, not 25 years old. And actually the age is moving the other side. On the other extreme, the 75 and the 80-year-old who used to get stuck because they don't have all the access and all the speed, they have the cloud. They have this new additional brain that they can access, and they have the wisdom. So you can now open up innovation and entrepreneurship and new ideas on a 15-year-old, and an 80-year-old. What are your thoughts on that, sir?
Well, I think you've touched on one of the most critical elements in success. It's on the highest level, it's called integrated thinking. Mm-hmm. It's how you integrate functions and generations, and to think about, I'm going to keep on coming back to this whole word of collaboration and synergy, because I look at what's happening. Again, I've done a lot of study in the Middle East about entrepreneurship, and there are, like I said, 50 to 60 very good impact hubs and innovative things, and not a lot of output. Why? Because they initiate ideas, they give them money, and they don't do the kind of coaching and personal work that's necessary to keep these things sustained. When the people go low in their U-curve about a project, they don't have the support. And there's not enough respect and listening between the generations. That's the empathy and the trust and the humility between these generations to be able to collaborate. The real true success is going to be when a 15, 16-year-old can collaborate with a Xer and a baby boomer and form this kind of integrated approach, because then you get the best of all these worlds. This is part of your reverse mentoring. But it's a very different kind of harmony, and it's a harmony which we don't really see because there are all these old silos in the way we think in a hierarchical modality instead of a seamless modality.
I also feel that tomorrow the 10-year-old girl in Sri Lanka will be co-creating and co-developing with an 80-year-old, 75-year-old person in Peru, and actually start doing it because you have simultaneous translation, you have direct access, you just need to find that level of overlap and alignment, and geography won't matter, age won't matter. So it's our softer side, which you started with, empathy and curiosity and authenticity. Those are the things that start coming out.
But it's exactly what you're saying. And as you know, as a result of 40 years in this work, I realized that the next step has to create a network which is going to bring together people who are impact investors, experts, and entrepreneurs, and have them communicating on a global basis about sustainable solutions. Why in Colombia, which has this incredible GPS kind of entrepreneurial venture where they could take a picture of somebody who's a potential sex slavery situation or abusing children and then figure out who that is. Why couldn't that solution be shared in Taipei or Dubai or New York? And why do we have to recreate the wheel? Why can't people who are astute in investment and astute in management and good in finance and good in marketing contribute to each other, because it's all for the social good? And there's a whole new way we have to learn to integrate resources and collaborate and think outside of ourselves to really change the world, because the world now, my world I was worried about Vietnam, okay? That was our issue. What is my 13-year-old worried about? Climate change. That's around the world. That has nothing to do with a country. That has to do with the world. So we have to take a global responsibility. So the solution has to be using the network, the digital formats, to create solutions which are collaborative. Because we had a lot of work to do to change our world to be where it really needs to be.